The newest kid on the block when it comes to tanking is also the least popular? Although it's not turning as many heads, Vengeance Demon Hunter is still a very fun tank to play and can take you through all of the content in the game if played correctly. And if you want to know how to play it correctly, then stay tuned and check our video because we will go through the talents, traits, essences, rotation, and everything you need to take your Demon Hunter into raids and Mythic Plus dungeons. And we're going to kick it off with the talents. The talent build hasn't changed much since 8.1, and all the changes that Vengeance got in general were not the talents. On the first row, you will take Abyssal Strike. This buffs your Infernal Strike ability to be casted more often and with an increased surface coverage. Your mobility will be off the charts with this baby, making you ideal to deal with raid mechanics that have you pick up adds or drop pools and get back in super quick. Second row, you have Fallout, making Immolation burst some souls for you to use. The chance of this effect occurring happens only on the initial tick, meaning you want to position yourself and hit as many targets as you can with your first damage wave. For each enemy you hit, you have a chance to spawn a lesser soul fragment. This offers you the ability to gain a bunch of souls on demand and prepare to spend them on certain abilities. On the third row, you will pick Flame Crash, making your Infernal Strike place a sigil of flame on the ground where you land. This transforms your mobility skill into an actual AoE damage dealing ability that helps you build aggro on large packs but also provide you with decent damage. Not to mention, this pairs up nicely with the first talent you picked. Fourth row, for general purpose, use Fracture. This works the same as Fallout in that you get a bunch of souls faster to respond to certain situations or prepare them for when the boss starts hitting you with tough abilities. This talent replaces Shear and you will not spam it as much, but use it more strategically. An alternative is Feed the Demon in very tough fights where you need more uptime on demon spikes, but you will be sacrificing more healing done if you take Feed the Demon. Fifth row is the utility row, specifically oriented towards your sigils. You can pick whatever you want here as long as you can take full advantage of it. For raiding, the one I recommend is Concentrated Sigils. Having the sigils placed at your feet is not a big deal, but their effects lasting 2 extra seconds gives you more utility since raid ads and trash generally live a lot longer. For Mythic Plus and still usable in raids as well, take Sigil of Chains. The utility, control and disruption capability of this one is fantastic, with only one other skill in the entire game that can rival it. Next up is Spirit Bomb. Yes, this is still the best and only viable talent on the row. Gluttony is unpredictable and tanks don't function with RNG that well, and Fell Devastation is simply an inferior version of Spirit Bomb. The uses Bomb gives you is AoE damage, decent AoE damage, and the Frailty debuff with an uptime of 100% for constant self-sustain and general synergy with all of your abilities. Last row is actually up for grabs. All options are viable with a specific niche each. It comes down to your choice what to pick, but if I had to recommend one of them, it would be Void Reaver. This one has a universal purpose in simply reducing the damage dealt to you by targets slashed with Soul Cleave. If you are progressing through tough and unpredictable fights though, Last Resort is much better, while Soul Barrier gives you a magic absorption cooldown with a fairly short cooldown. Pick what you think you'll need more. Tank stats need to be approached a little differently than DPS because you cannot simply sim the survivability capability of each stat, and simply aiming to do as much damage will not work in your favor most of the time. The general stat priority is eye level first and foremost. Agility increases the potential of all of your attacks and also gives you dodge. Although on a chance to proc, dodge is one of the strongest tank defensives in the game. It's essentially what you have. Haste comes second. It reduces the cooldown of demon spikes and immolation aura for this build, meaning more uptime on both of them, which is crucial for your survivability as a tank. Versatility is the second best secondary stat. It's a general and boring stat, I know, but effective for you. It increases the damage you do, good, decreases the damage you take, also good, and increases the healing you do, even better. Vengeance healing is one of the strongest out of all of the tanks, and it's a form of reactive mitigation since you will take a big hit to your face which you have to heal afterwards. Ergo, versatility, good. Mastery followed by crit next. They both increase the strength of your mitigation and the damage output, which translates into more healing. When it comes to trinkets, Vengeance has a lot of options that again come into play based on your character and your decision making. A lot of demon hunters use DPS trinkets because DPS will translate into self-sustain, which is one of the mechanics of you as a tank, plus Vengeance Demon Hunter simply excels at damage dealing. Trinkets like Harlan's Loaded Dice, for instance, performs really well, as well as the new punch card trinket from Mechagon with the Cyclotronic Blast red punch card and a Haste Versatility yellow punch card, or Versatility Crit. Essentially all yellow punch cards will be very good for you. If you want to take a more defensive approach, the new Inscription Trinket, Highborn Compendium of Mystical Bulwark, seems to be very popular on the high end of things. Not to mention the effect simply looks very strong on paper. Or the Alchemist Stone made from alchemy is a definitely viable alternative option. As far as Azerite traits, there are a few that stand out. When raiding, you want 1 Hour of Reaping for its special effect, giving you the soul barrier. After that you can stack Revel in Pain 3 times for the powerful shield every 1 minute. The rest of the spots can be filled by Rigid Carapace and Infernal Armor, which are really good for both raiding and dungeons. But with priority, when doing Mythic Plus, you still want 1 Hour of Reaping, additionally 1 Cycle of Binding and or 1 Essence Sever, with 3 Revel in Pain. If you still have leftover spots, you can fill them with Rigid Carapace and Infernal Armor. As for essences, the meta is still being researched and we don't have all the essences to test out yet. There are, however, a few that seem to stand out. For raiding, Crucible of Flame seems to work really well as the major choice. The fire damage it deals synergizes really well with your kit. As a secondary, you have more options though. Lifeblood from World Vein Resonance works good, and Lucid Dreams, Minor from Memory of Lucid Dreams, also works really well, although the return rate of pain is not that amazing for Vengeance. When in dungeons, the actual dungeon essence rewarded, Anima of Life and Death, basically screams Vengeance Demon Hunter in its tooltip, being able to deal AoE damage based on your health and heal you right back as well. For the minor, the one used the most at the moment is Stand Your Ground from the Aegis of the Deep, since it has a nice versatility component. You can even swap the two with each other if the respective majors work better for you, since the minor effects are the same either way, regardless of what major you use. There's a lot more to discuss about essences and traits, and the meta in general. Hop onto our stream on twitch.tv/MarcelianOnline, where I test different specs with you, the viewer. You can at least come and say hi, and pay your respects to Marcelian, who only edits these days. He needs some support and love. The rotation for tanks and Vengeance as well is a lot less straightforward and as such has more things to talk about. First we have our mitigation, at least direct mitigation, which are Demon Spikes, Fiery Brand and Metamorphosis. Yeah, you pretty much guessed it right. Not a lot to work with, which is one of the biggest issues Vengeance has. Demon Spikes is very strong, at least for physical damage, which is admittedly the majority of the things that will smash you in the face. Even so, demon spikes will not have 100% uptime, and Feed the Demon helps, but does not solve the issue either. Fiery Brand is on a 1-minute cooldown, and paired with the Azurite trait you stack 3 times, ends up being really good. You won't want to stack this with Demon Spikes or Metamorphosis, since you really want to spread out your mitigation for longer periods of time, especially if you are the only one tanking the target. Metamorphosis has been buffed a lot in 8.2 and is still an underwhelming ability for how long the cooldown is. Warriors can reduce their cooldown by a lot, and they have 3 times as many tools as Vengeance. Because we have so few tools to work with, you have to be a lot more careful when you use them so you don't get caught off guard and die. What Vengeance does very well, however, is transforming damage into healing, and it works with proper soul fragment manipulation. Plus, you have 2 playstyles that can change between offensives and defensives based on the difficulty of the encounter. Offensive playstyle suggests you consume most, if not all, of your soul fragments on spirit bombs, weaving the actual skill into your rotation regardless of the remaining time on the frailty debuff. While playing defensively, you will use them on Soul Cleave instead, keeping Spirit Bomb only to apply the frailty debuff. The defensive playstyle sacrifices healing over simply taking less damage and doing less damage. The better you are geared, the less you will need to rely on this way of playing. You can, however, talk about a rotational priority of your general abilities, excluding Mitigation, since that is encounter reliance and decision reliance as well. As such, use Spirit Bomb at 4 or more souls to apply frailty, and consistently if you are maximizing damage output. Use Fracture to generate souls in short bursts, but be careful not to cap on pain or souls. Immolation with the same argument. Soul Cleave at above 60 pain, or defensively consuming souls to provide an increase in survivability. Keep Sigil of Flame on cooldown, the actual spell, or even with the Infernal Strike as well. Don't spend all of your Infernal Strike charges, however, since you want one in case you have to move out. The cool part of playing any tank is maximizing your survivability, which comes with a lot of practice. Maximizing DPS is very straightforward, but damage mitigation is influenced by a lot of factors, so don't be discouraged if you don't see yourself performing well at the start. Vengeance is not the most optimal tank, and by optimal I mean that pressing a button would not solve as many problems as it would if you were a warrior or a monk. But that doesn't mean the spec is not viable. You can definitely clear heroic and even mythic raid bosses and mythic plus dungeons, admittedly with more difficulty. You just need to work harder on building your character. The guide is coming out fairly early in the season, and it's likely some things might change later on. As such, I recommend you check the Fellhammer Discord channel. There is a lot of theory crafting and testing being done there, and I got some really sweet info for the guide there. When you finalize your gearing process with enchants and stuff, you still have to think about your stat priority and distribution. Sure, haste is the best, but that doesn't mean you will go with 0 crit, because you will be useless. As such, choose your consumables based on your stat distribution to keep a fair balance between them, which usually comes naturally since not all gear is just haste and versatility. By default, you will use a Cord of Haste on rings as enchants, and Quicksand Spinel in sockets, with one socket ideally dedicated to Leviathan's Eye of Agility because agility is better. For your weapon enchants, I recommend you take Force Multiplier and Quick Navigation. They work well both offensively and defensively. Flasks and Pots will consist of the Greater Flask of the Currents and Superior Battle Potion of Agility. I do not recommend taking any stamina alternatives for these, however, since they don't mitigate damage or increase your own. Lastly, for the maximum gains, eat feasts, most likely in raids, unless you are filthy rich, you filthy animal, and baked potato in all other scenarios because haste once again. If you do find yourself stacking too much haste, you can start replacing the consumables with their versatility equivalent, keeping in mind that skewing towards versatility gives you more defensive capabilities. Maybe Vengeance Demon Hunter isn't for you, or maybe you just want to smash things with a big two-handed weapon. We got you covered with our 8.2 Arms Warrior Guide. Oh yeah! You're gonna learn how to bleed your enemies dry with the talents, traits, essences, rotation, and everything you need for arms. Shout out to our Patreons. Love you guys and your support. And if you want to join our Patreon team, hit the link down in the description of the video. Also, hit that Teespring official link for that World of Warcraft and Marcelian&Online branded merch. Oh yeah, we got t-shirts, tank tops, hoodies and mugs for your sweet body. Thanks for watching the video and have an amazing day.